you are entering the realm of the Time Prophet, exploring the darker regions of time and the world about us. Why, in the current iteration of Doctor Who, are the lights from the TARDIS windows so bright? It's almost like you have a 2000-watt halogen bulb inside the TARDIS. When the TARDIS first came onto our screens in 1963, it was just an old police box in a scrapyard in Totter's Court Road.
What's a police public call box?
It's a telephone box from the 1950s. It's a disguise.
Okay.
If you went into the scrapyard in the dusk, you wouldn't even notice the TARDIS at all. It just looked like any other piece of junk in the corner of the yard. The shape of the TARDIS was a cost-effective solution. The very first TARDIS was an old prop taken from a long-running police series called Dixon of Dock Green. The first police boxes first appeared in the metropolitan area in 1929. The prop from Doctor Who was supposed to be a 1955-1960s police box, although the dimensions were not physically accurate. The light on top of a police box was intended to light up and attract any police that were on the street at the time. So your local bobby would have to stand within sight of the light. This was a time before police had personal radios, so if the light came on, they knew they had to phone the station. So here are the arguments for having the bright lights in the TARDIS. It's a time machine, it's not a real police box, so that is why it has bright lights. Real police boxes would have a light in. It has a perception filter so nobody can see it. Okay, let's start with the first. Yes, it is a time machine, but it is supposed to blend in with its surroundings, so the bright lights would be a dead giveaway that it wasn't a real police box. Secondly, real police boxes would have had a light. Yes, true. Early police boxes were gas-powered and would have had a gas light inside. Later police boxes had electricity, but it was usually just one bulb and usually just an ordinary 40-watt bulb, which is definitely not a 2000-watt halogen spotlight. Last point, it has a perception filter. This one truly makes me laugh. In classic Doctor Who, the perception filter didn't exist. The perception filter was first discussed in the Torchwood series, where they used it to hide the entrance to the Torchwood building. Which means people walking past would not see you enter the secret headquarters of Torchwood. This makes a lot of sense, as you don't want people seeing a hidden entrance to a building. However, the TARDIS never had a perception filter. If the TARDIS had a perception filter, what would be the point of the chameleon circuit? Also, there are many stories where the TARDIS can be seen by other people, so this debunks the perception filter argument. In the very first story, An Unearthly Child with the Cavemen, they not only see the TARDIS, but throw spears at it. Many times it is mistaken as a real police box, such as in the story Logopolis, even though it was set in the 80s and most police boxes were decommissioned in the late 70s.
See, the problem is, coming back to the 20th century, my dear, the TARDIS, I'm afraid, is often mistaken for the real police box.
See what you mean.
There has also been various stories where the TARDIS has been stolen or moved, and this was quite easy as the outer dimensions of a TARDIS only were the same as the object it is masquerading as. Otherwise it is said that a TARDIS would be too heavy to land on any planet. There is one interesting story where the TARDIS is mistaken as a piece of art in a museum by the actor John Cleese.
For me, one of the most curious things about this piece is its wonderful a-functional. It's called to be here. The art lies in the fact that it is here.
Exquisite.
TARDIS.
Oh, yes. I asked the doctor what it meant. Time and relative dimensions in space, he said.
Yes.
The chameleon circuit is a device that all TARDISes have that changes the appearance of the outer shell of the TARDIS to blend in with its surroundings. Unfortunately, due to circumstances unknown, the chameleon circuit in the Doctor's TARDIS broke, and the Doctor has only tried to fix it once in the show. But there are possibly other occasions he tried and failed. The Time Lords used block transfer matrices as a function of maintaining the outer plasmic shell and interior configurations of a TARDIS, which is an advanced form of mathematics that can only be done in the mind, and a computer cannot be used. It has no need of a perception filter because if, for instance, the TARDIS landed in a car park, it would probably change its shape into a car. There are times the Master's TARDIS took on the shape of a Corinthian pillar, a Concorde, a Melcar, a fireplace, and various other shapes in various stories.
Something I should have done a long time ago. Repair the chameleon circuit.
What?
The TARDIS, when working properly, is capable of many amazing things. Not unlike myself. One of its functions is that it can change shape to blend perfectly with its surrounding environment.
There was a case when the Time Lord known as the Mad Monk disguised his TARDIS as a Saxon sarcophagus.
Let me have it.
We can get inside.
And of course, there was a time when the Doctor fixed the chameleon circuit and the Doctor's TARDIS took on various forms, such as a flowery Welsh cabinet and a Hammond organ. A Time Lord named Chronotis also made his TARDIS look like a room in St. Sed's College. Apparently the TARDIS on first landing would scan its surroundings and try its best to blend in with them. It usually changes into a shape with a human-sized door so that the occupants could exit and enter easily. However, there have been times when the TARDIS has gone wrong and the door was so small it was impossible to enter or exit the TARDIS. So why, in most modern incarnations of the TARDIS, do they have bright white lights coming out of the TARDIS windows? I think it might be a stylistic choice. I mean, bright light coming out of anything looks cool, and yes, I admit, it does make the TARDIS a little cool looking, but at the same time, it is stupid. In all the classic Doctor Who, the TARDIS was described as a tattered, blue police box, and it never had any light coming from its windows. The windows were very often dirty looking and in a state of disrepair, which is because it landed in a scrapyard in the 1960s and it was trying to blend in as just another piece of scrap in the yard. Later, in modern Doctor Who, the TARDIS would even have bright lights coming out of the windows, even if it landed in daylight. No police box would even have its lights on in the daytime, and when it landed at night, it looked like it had a football stadium lighting system coming through the windows. So what is this modern obsession with the TARDIS and the bright lights? I will say that when dematerialising or materialising, I have no problems with the lights being bright then, or if something goes wrong, as in the TARDIS energy seeping into Rose Tyler.
What have you done?
I looked into the TARDIS, and the TARDIS looked into me.
But it shouldn't be bright after landing, or even on at all in most circumstances. In the Tennant era, there was obvious strip lighting around the window in some shots. This would be an obvious giveaway that it wasn't a real police box, because strip lights did not exist in the 1950s, and the first use of the modern strip lights you know now didn't come out until the 1970s. So please, BBC, stop putting bright lights in the TARDIS. What is the point of a chameleon circuit if you're going to light up the TARDIS like a Christmas tree? That is all I have to say.
Oh, I say.
About that dinner at the palace, Her Majesty.
It is time for the Time Prophet to leave this universe. Please subscribe, and I will bid you farewell.